بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين الحبيب المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته الكرام المنتجبين. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, and may all the praise be to God. Also, may all the peace and the blessings be upon all the prophets, especially Prophet Muhammad, and upon his purified progeny and the believers of his companions. And may the peace and the blessings be upon all of you, dear brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue with our Qur'an study. Today we will start reading verse 70, chapter 22, al-Hajj. I read the Arabic, then Muhammad Rada will translate, and then we'll study verse by verse, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ألم تعلم أن الله يعلم ما في السماوات والأرض إن ذلك في كتاب إن ذلك على الله يسير.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Do you not know that Allah knows all that is in the heaven and on earth? Surely all of this is recorded in a book. Certainly that is easy for God.
So this is another attribute of God. This chapter has told us about some of his attributes. We studied some yesterday, including the word al-Ghani, if you remember, the self-sufficient. Now this verse is talking about another attribute of God. God is telling us about himself in a way we can understand. It says God knows everything on earth and in the universe. He knows what has happened in the past, everything that has happened in the past. Imagine this universe, not only the earth. Imagine everything, every single act, every single movement that takes place on earth or in the universe. God is aware of that because he manages this universe and he manages everything on earth as well. He knows what is going on right now and he knows what will happen in the future. This is the knowledge of God. Humans have limited knowledge, and also they have limited ability to know something. So, their brain cannot understand everything. For example, we might not understand what is beyond time and space. We only understand what is associated and related to time and space. But if you say, humans don't even have a word for before time and space. We say time before time was created, and so we use the word time. What is before time was created? We don't have a word for that. So, but we know God was there before time and space was created. So our ability to understand is also limited. And our ability to know is very limited. We do not know what happens beyond this wall, beyond these doors, and in rooms next to us. We don't know what is going on unless there are cameras or recordings, or somebody would come and tell us what happened behind what we cannot sense and what we cannot see. But not for God. God knows everything that takes place in this universe, what have happened in the past, what will happen in the future as well. He knows everything. And the Quran says, وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Sorry. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. This is in chapter 3, verse number 5. Nothing is concealed from, nothing on earth and in the universe is concealed from God. He knows everything. And everything is recorded. That's even more amazing. Everything is written in a book. What does this mean? It means everything is already recorded. What has happened, already recorded. And what will happen also is written. Is written that for people, for things that will happen in the future. Now, what does this book mean? Of course, it's a metaphor to, a system that God knows how, but everything is recorded somehow. God, to make this easier for us to understand, he said a book, written in a book. But this is, of course, a metaphor. Today, we got to know a concept called the cloud. Everything is stored in the cloud. We don't know where, but it's called the cloud. I am not an IT person, but I know that there is something that could store things and record things. And today we get to understand better the concept of recording because of technology. So your smartphone, in fact, records almost everything about you. It records where you go, how you spend your money, what you say. It even might record your voice or your picture, photo, your correspondence, your messages, records everything. So if today this smartphone records everything about us, of course, God who created us has a system that records everything about us. Maybe in the future, we will know better how God records everything that happens and how he already recorded what is going to happen in the future. And remember, we talked about this before. God's knowledge of the future does not conflict with our freedom. I gave you the example, our freedom of choices. God knowing about how we will behave and what is going to happen in the future is no way is conflicting with areas of our freedom of choices. So, for example, you came and joined this session of Qur'an study by your choice. Nobody forced you to do that, but God knew that you will join this group this evening. And on the day of judgment, God will show all these records, private records that he recorded of every individual in their hands. Look, this is what you have done in your life. People might have forgotten something, and then they see it there, and they will be amazed and surprised. Oh my God, this record has not forgetting anything, has not dropped anything, small or big. It's all mentioned there. The person himself or herself might forget about what they have done, but when they see the records, they remember, oh yes, I remember what, when this happened, when I did that, so this is something that the Quran is telling us about the attribute of God, his ability, his capability. And it says, Inna dhalika ala Allahi yasir. This is easy. Today, now we understand the concept of a cloud. There is a place where a lot of information is being stored. Maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago, if you would have told me about a cloud, I would not understand what a cloud would mean. Today, of course, I understand it. And now we can understand that, how God in his own way records everything that is happening. All right, the next verse, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. This is verse 71. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ويعبدون من دون الله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وما ليس لهم به علم وما للظالمين من نصير.
Yet they worship besides God those deities for which no authority has been set down and of which they have no knowledge. For wrongdoers there is no helper.
So with all of this might and knowledge, and power of God and the miracles of God in this universe, that he knows everything, that he sends rain down, that he created the earth and the universe in the way here on earth, that there is day, there is night. He sent us our sustenance. With all of this that God does, those pagans still worship idols. Their worshiping of idols has no basis with revelation and no basis with common sense. This is what the Quran says. God has not warranted the idol worshippers to worship idols. So apparently from this verse and many other verses, we understand that idol worshippers, they actually believed in a supreme power, in God as the supreme power. Their problem is that they took idols as partners with God. So they would worship these idols as partners with God. And this is why the mission of our Prophet and his ministry was focused on the oneness of God, on monotheism, on oneness of God, that God is one and he has no partner, has no partners at all. So the Quran tells them, since you believe in the supreme power that is Allah, that is God, but God has not warranted this act of yours in taking partners with God. This is why in Arabic they are called mushrik. Mushrik is someone who associates other deities with God. This is called mushrik. Mushrik is not an atheist. Atheist who might not believe in God or a religion. But a mushrik who worships God, but he takes partners with him. The Quran says, God did not permitted you to do that. What is the evidence? And also, there is no reasoning behind taking partners with God. The Quran says, ما لم ينزل به سلطانا. God has not warranted, has not given you authority to do this. وما ليس لهم به علم. And in fact, there is no knowledge, that gave you this power. So there is no common sense behind taking partners with God. وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِن نَصِيرٍ. They lack evidences. Nasir is a helper. So there is no helper for those who do injustice. The Quran consider those who accept this kind of belief, taking partners with God, is that he or she has no based on revelation and no common sense. Whoever does this is someone who is unjust, violent, unjust. And those unjust people, when they come on the day of judgment, God will ask them, where is the evidence? Where is, what you based your worship on, your beliefs on? And since they do not have evidence there, so there will be no helper for them at that time. On the day of judgment, they lack the evidence on the day of judgment. All right. I think this is the final verse for tonight. Verse 72. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإذا تتلى عليهم آياتنا بينات تعرف في وجوه الذين كفروا المنكر يكادون يسطون بالذين يتلون عليهم آياتنا قل أفأنبئكم بشر من ذلكم النار وعدها الله الذين كفروا وبئس المصير.
Whenever our revelations are recited to them with all their clarity, you can recognize evil on the face of the unbelievers. They would almost assault those who recite our revelations and say to them, "Shall I inform you of something more serious? It is the hellfire. God has promised it to those who disbelieve, and what an awful destination."
So the Quran describes some of the idol worshippers as stubborn, as fanatic. Fanatic is that in fact, they do not accept the truth. And then when the Quran is being recited for them, they become extremely raged. You can see the rage on their face. Their faces grow dark and frown, and to the point that this rage might in fact direct them to use violence, to assault those who were reciting the verses of the Quran upon them, like the Prophet. And this is what they used to do. They would assault the Prophet, use force against him, throw sticks and rocks and stones on him and on his face as well. So this is how the Quran is describing some of the pagans and their acts. It says they have no tolerance to hear the message, the revelation, and especially when it says about the oneness of God and that those idols, worshipping idols, make no sense. And this in fact applies to almost a lot of people, not only the pagans. I'm sure you've heard of the term we use today, lactose intolerant or lactose intolerance. Those who, when they consume milk, for example, their stomach become very upset. Sometimes they become very, very sick. In fact, there are people who are in this world who are other opinion intolerant. They cannot hear what other people say that might be different than what they believe in. They really cannot. They don't have this tolerance. And sometimes they become violent when they hear the other opinion. They get upset, very upset. And sometimes some of them, they lose their control and they use violence. This might be in every nation, every community of faith. People who are stubborn, and, and lack the tolerance to hear the other opinion. This could be even among people in the past and people today, right today, and also in the future. There will be people like those. People who are in undeveloped countries and undeveloped communities, and people who live in developed countries. Those who lack emotional management. They cannot manage their emotion when they simply hear the other that disagrees with them. The Quran is teaching us again and again and again. You remember in the previous verses, the Quran taught us about how not to dispute with those who disagree with us, not to engage in useless arguments, and always be respectful. And when we end, even the Quran taught us how to end this kind of argument by saying, you know what, God knows better, and God will be the judge. I'm not going to judge on the way you believe or you practice your faith. On the other hand, he says there are certain people, and those could be part of the pagans or within even believing communities, that they cannot hear and tolerate the point of views of others. So this verse, brothers and sisters, teaching us a lot of tolerance and manners. This verse is called Surah al-Hajj, the chapter of pilgrimage. And it teaches us a lot of, how we deal with differences in opinions and also in faith. And I believe the trip to Hajj, to pilgrimage, also teaches us the same. Because there, we get to see millions of people who come from different corners of the world, from Asia, from Europe, and they might understand the faith different than us. They may practice the faith little bit different than us. We need to be tolerant. We need not to judge people and be tolerant of what they respect or what they believe. We also be respectful of that. We may disagree with that, but be respectful of this, and especially manage our emotions. Be tolerant of other people, faith and practices. And then the Quran says, so tell those pagans who get hurt and they are outraged because you tell them about the oneness of God, if you do not tolerate this simple fact, then let me tell you more. How about the hellfire that God has promised those who do injustice, those who deny God, he promised that hellfire for them. And obviously this is an awful destiny for those. وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. We conclude our discussion for tonight. If there is a question, please raise it, or a comment that you would like to add. Then after that, we'll take a couple of minutes a break, and then we come back for our next session, inshallah. And for the sake of this holy month, and for the sake of the Prophet Muhammad and his household, and especially for the sake of the one who we commemorate his martyrdom during these nights, Imam Ali alayhi salam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you, increases His rewards for you, for your devotion, for your fasting, for your charity, for your prayers during this month. Keep you healthy and safe, protect you from this pandemic, protect all our health workers and every health workers, those who are fighting against the pandemic, protect them from being impacted by this, and give healing to those who are ill and sick, bless the soul of those who departed, and also help those who are facing economic challenges due to this current condition. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We take a few